Okay, year 8, so we're going to be moving on now to our next exercise, which is exercise 3F. So we're going to be looking at terminating, recurring and rounding decimals. So, a few key words. What does terminating mean and what does recurring mean? So, terminating decimal means a decimal that will finish. So for example, if I've got 5/8, and if I want to convert 5/8 as a decimal, I'm going to use my calculator. So what you do on your calculator is you type in 5 divided by 8. So you go 5 divided by 8 and it will give you a decimal. So it will give you 0.625. Now, you will notice that it finishes here. So that means that it's terminating. It doesn't go any further than that. Alright, it will give you an answer. It stops there, so that means that it's terminating. It stops after the 5. There's no other number after the 5. Okay, so that's referred to as a terminating decimal. Now, a recurring decimal is when you have a number that keeps going on and on and on. So for example, if I have a third, and if I do 1 divided by 3 and then I press equals, you will get 0.33333 and it will just keep going. Okay? So that is referred to as a recurring decimal because the number 3 is recurring. So you can write a recurring decimal like this, but the correct mathematical way of writing it is with a dot on top. So you put 0 point and then you put a dot on top of the number that repeats itself. So in this case, the 3 is the one repeating itself. So 0.3 and then you put a dot only on the 3, not on the 0, only on the 3. Okay. If there are two numbers that keep recurring and keep repeating themselves, so if it was 3, 2, 3, 2, 3, 2, etc., then you would put a line on top of those numbers. Okay? So you put a dot if it's one digit. If it's two digits that are repeating, you put a line like this. Okay? But in this case, it's only one digit that's repeating, and we're going to be looking at some more examples later on. Okay? But for now, you just leave it with the one line, the one dot at the top of the 3, because that just means that the 3 is repeating itself. Okay. Now, very easy. The first example, convert the following fractions to decimals. How do we convert it to decimals? We know straight away that a quarter is 0.25. But if you're not sure, okay, just use your calculator. How do we put fractions in the calculator? This means to divide. So it's 1 divided by 4. So if I put in 1 divided by 4, enter, I get 0.25. Okay. So as you can see, this one here would be a terminating decimal because it finishes there. It's not repeating itself. Alright, let's have a look at the next one. 7/8. So that means 7 divided by 8. And I will get 0.875. Okay, so I just write those down. You don't need to do them by hand. You can just use a calculator for this particular question. Now, you will notice that that also finishes here. So that will also be referred to as a terminating decimal. Okay. Alright, moving on now to example 2. So we'll copy that down into our rules book. And then we're moving on to the next example, which is example 2. Okay, moving on to example 2. It says, express the following fractions as recurring decimals. The first one, 2 divided by 3, so 2/3. 2 divided by 3, enter. We're going to get 0.6, and the 6 just keeps repeating. So when the 6 keeps repeating, you put a little dot here on top to represent that it's a recurring decimal. Okay, let's have a look at the next one, B. Now, it's not B equals, sorry, that should just be B as a heading, no equal sign there. Alright, my apologies. So, this one here is 3 whole and 5 divided by 7. Okay, so I'm going to do 3 plus, and then in brackets, open bracket, I'm going to go 5 divided by 7, close bracket, equals, and then I'm going to get an answer of 3.714285714. Okay, and then it just keeps going. Now, we need to look at what's happening over here and which numbers are repeating. So as you can see, I've got 7, 1, 4, 2, 8, they're all different. 5, they're all different. And then it starts with the 7, 1, 4 again. So this section here is repeating down here. So the ones that are repeating, it goes up to there, and then it starts the cycle again. 7, 1, 4, 2, 8, etc. So because these are the ones that are repeating, okay, all of these numbers are repeating, that means to write that correctly in mathematics, you would go 3 point, just write 7, 1, 4, 2, 8, 5, and then you're going to put a line on top of those like that. So that just means that 7, 1, 4, 2, 8 is repeating as you're doing that. Okay? So that one there would be a recurring decimal. And 7, 1, 4, 2, 8 are the numbers that keep repeating themselves. Okay? Alright. So you copy that one down into your rules book, and then we're going to move on to the next example. Okay, and finally, our favourite, rounding decimal places. So, look, with rounding, some of you will be really, really good at it, but there are still people that get to year 11 and 12 that there's errors in their work, and when we're marking work as maths teachers, we were like, oh, this is all correct, this is all right, this is right, they've followed this procedure, they've done this correct, they've done this correct, and their final answer is wrong just because they forgot to round off to the correct decimal place. It happens, okay? So you might think, oh, why are we doing this now? It's not important. It actually is very important, okay? So as long as we understand it now, then you're not going to have any trouble in senior school. So I'm going to go over it again for those of you that do not know. Some of you will already know how to round, and that is fantastic. If you don't know how to round, watch very carefully, because I'm going to teach you exactly what you need to do. Now, when they ask you to round a number, they will always tell you how many decimal places they want it to. So they might want it to 2 decimal places, they might want it to 3, they might want it to 4. So they should specify in the question what they want you to round the number to. Alright, so this one says here, round each of the following to a specified number of decimal places. Okay, so here they've given you the first value. So with the first one, and I didn't write it down properly, so the first one we're going to do to 3 decimal places. So I'm going to put in brackets here 3dp, which means 3 decimal places. And this one here will do to 4 decimal places, okay? So the question will tell you how many decimal places they want you to round to. So let's look at our first number here. We've got 15.35729. Now they want us to round off to 3 decimal places. Whenever they want you to round off to 3 decimal places, this is what you do. You are going to underline the 3 numbers after your decimal point, because they want 3 decimal places, so you're going to underline the 3 numbers after your decimal point. If they want 4 decimal places, then you are going to underline 4 numbers after your decimal point. If they want 5 places, then you're going to underline 5 numbers after your decimal point. If they only want 1 number, then you're going to underline 1 number after your decimal point. So I've underlined 3 after my decimal point. Now, these are the numbers that I'm going to use, but that's not the final answer. What you then do is if they want 3 decimal places, you're then going to circle the one after that number. So if it's 3 lines, you're going to circle the next one. If it's 2 lines, you're going to circle the next one. So if they ask for 3, you underline 3 and then you circle the one that comes after it. Why? This one here will determine whether this number will round up or it will stay as it is. Okay? If this number here is 5 or more, including it being 5, so if it is 5, then we would have to round this number up to 8. If it's below 5, which it is in this case, then that number stays the same. So if I need to round this number off to 3 decimal places, it's going to be 15.357, and that will be my final answer. Okay, I've used 3 numbers after the decimal point because they only want 3. They want me to round it off to 3 places. So that's what I've done. But you always have to check the one after it to make sure it doesn't round up. Okay, so in this case, because it's below 5, it does not round up. So that means that that stays as it is. It stays the same. It stays at 7. Okay, alright, let's have a look at B now. Now B says 4 decimal places. So what do? I find my decimal point, I underline 1, 2, 3, 4, and I circle the one that comes after the 4th one. I look at that number. What is that number? I have the number 5. That means that it's 5 or more, so that means that I'm going to round up my next number. Now, if I round that one there up 1, that's going to become 10. So if that becomes 10, then I'm going to round this one up by 1 as well. So what happens is if I've got 8 there, that would become 9. But I've got 9. So that means that that's going to go up, so it's going to become a 0. And then this one here is going to become a 2. Alright? So what we're going to do is we're going to rewrite the number 4.8620. Okay? Now, you have to include the 0 because they've asked for 4 decimal places. So you can't leave the 0 out. Okay? If they ask for 2 decimal places and it's a whole number, let's just say your answer is 15, but they ask you to give it as 2 decimal places, then you have to put 15.00. That is the correct mathematical way of doing it. Alright? If they specify to you the number of decimal places they want you to use, then you have to include it. And if there isn't a number there, then you put the number 0. In this case, this one there would round up to 10, so you have to increase this one by 1 as well. So you've made that 20. You've made that a 2. Okay, so your answer is 4.8620. All right, and finally, we have write 3/7 as a decimal, correct to 2 decimal places. What do? We take our calculator. How do we convert a fraction to a decimal? Okay, what do? 3/7. So that means 3 divided by 7. So in our calculator, we type in 3 divided by 7. Enter. We're going to get an answer of 3/7 equals 0.428571428. Alright. Now, they want us to round that off to 2 decimal places. So what do? I underline the 2 numbers after the decimal point, and then I circle my 3rd number. Now here, that's an 8, so that means that that number there is going to round up 1, so that's going to become a 3. So I'm going to have 0.43. So that will be my final answer once I have rounded it. Now, if you still don't understand how to do this, please come on Google Meet and I will go through it with you again, okay? But in the meantime, I would like you to copy this down into your rules book, okay? And I would like you to start working on the exercise, on the questions that I've set for you on Classroom. I look forward to seeing you guys on Google Meet if you have any questions. But if you are okay and you're comfortable with this topic, then you can just complete exercise 3F, and we'll leave it there for now. Thank you.